Hey there, and welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
Today we're jumping right into something, well, pretty dramatic happening in baseball right now.
Uh-huh.
The sudden, really steep collapse of the Oakland Athletics this season, 2025.
Yeah, it's gone from, a surprisingly decent start to just a complete nosedive. It's kind of stunning, really, in just a few weeks.
It really is. And look, we can actually take this deep dive today thanks to a specific source you shared with us.
Yes.
It's a post called No Pitching by David Pinto. He's known as @StatsGuru over on Baseball Musings.
That's him. Great stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His analysis seems to cut right to the core of it here. So this deep dive, it's basically us walking through his insights, trying to understand what he found, and, definitely giving credit to David Pinto for laying this all out.
Exactly. So our mission, really, is to unpack what David Pinto found in that post, to figure out what his analysis points to as the main reason, the primary culprit for the A's struggles.
Right. Because, like the title suggests and his numbers really show,
Yeah.
the surprising thing here is that it might not be what you'd first assume.
Yeah, that's the interesting part right away from Pinto's work, isn't it? He's suggesting it's apparently not the offense that's the main problem driving this specific collapse. Okay, so let's dig into what David Pinto's numbers actually show us about this wild turn of events.
Let's do it.
So David Pinto starts by reminding us, and he's right, that the A's actually had a surprisingly promising start to the season.
Yeah, better than most expected.
He notes that back on May 5th, they were 2016. They were even just one game out of first place in the AL West then. I mean, who saw that coming?
Right. Feels like a lifetime ago now looking at what's happened since.
It really does because, as Pinto details, since May 6th, they've just cratered completely.
Yeah.
Their record since then, 3 wins and 19 losses. That's a winning percentage of just .136 over that stretch.
That's just, it's almost unbelievable for any team to drop off that sharply over just a few weeks.
Yeah.
And Pinto points out that's actually the second worst record in the majors during that specific time. Only the Rockies were worse. 3-21, slightly worse.
Okay, now here's where David Pinto's analysis gets really interesting because he highlights how unusual this collapse is.
Right, it's not the typical pattern.
Exactly. He points out that normally, when a team is that bad, losing 19 of 22 games, you'd expect basically everything to be broken. You know?
Yeah, hitting, pitching, fielding, all of it.
He uses the Rockies again as the example. During that same time, they had the lowest runs scored and the highest runs allowed, just a total system failure.
But that's not quite the A's story here, according to Pinto.
No, as he shows, their situation in this specific period is different. It's not a complete breakdown everywhere.
Okay.
He digs into their offense during this really brutal streak. He found they had a slash line of .252, .322, .414.
Which is, okay.
Well, he calls it not gangbusters, but here's the crucial point he makes. It's really not that different from the Major League average over that same period. Ah, okay. What was the average?
League average was .249, .312, .403, so very similar.
So his numbers are saying their hitting hasn't totally fallen off a cliff. It's been, roughly league average during this awful stretch.
Pretty much. Now, they did only score 4.0 runs per game, which ranked 19th, and their hitting with runners in scoring position was only .237.
Which isn't great.
No, but Pinto suggests that specific number, the RISP, that might just be some bad luck, some variance over a short stretch like this.
Could be.
The absolute key point, though, according to his analysis, is that the offense doesn't look like the primary driver. It's not where the, historically bad failure is happening.
Right, which naturally leads us to the other side of the ball, and where David Pinto identifies the real catastrophe.
Yes, the pitching. And the word Pinto uses to describe the pitching performance during the stretch is
ghastly.
Ghastly. Yeah, that's a strong word.
It is, but his numbers absolutely back it up. Opponents, since May 6th, have hit an incredible .30, .383, .572 against its pitching.
Wow. Just how?
Yeah. And David Pinto uses this fantastic analogy to really, drive home just how bad that is.
Oh, yeah. What's the analogy?
He says batters facing the A's pitchers during this time are hitting like a combination of 3 elite hitters, James Wood,
Okay.
Jose Ramirez, and Alex Bregman, all rolled into one.
Oh, my goodness. That really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does.
Imagine facing a lineup where literally everyone hits like some kind of composite all-star.
Mm-hmm.
That's the level of damage opposing teams are doing against the A's pitching based on Pinto's data.
It absolutely is. And the runs allowed, well, they reflect that disastrous performance. They've given up 177 runs in this stretch.
Which works out to, what, per game?
7.7 runs per game allowed.
7.7, good grief.
And Pinto notes that's 0.7 runs more per game than even the Rockies allowed during that same period. Remember, the Rockies had the worst record overall.
Right, so it just highlights how uniquely, extremely bad the pitching has been for the A's during this slump he's analyzing.
Exactly. Now, this is where David Pinto gets a little bit philosophical, or maybe darkly humorous. He brings in a quote from the movie Annie Hall. You know the one.
Yeah.
About life being divided into two categories.
Miserable and horrible.
That's the one. Miserable and horrible. Horrible being like the terminal cases and miserable being everyone else. And you should feel lucky just to be miserable.
Right. It's a grimly funny take. How does Pinto use that?
Well, he applies it directly to the A's pitching splits to show there's a distinction within the ghastly performance.
Okay. Between starters and relievers, presumably.
You got it. He describes the starters as being simply miserable.
Miserable. Okay. So bad, but not terminal.
According to the analogy, yeah. Opponents are hitting .293, .352, .559 against the starters during this collapse, which is, bad. Definitely miserable.
Okay, starters. Miserable. Got it.
But the relievers, according to Pinto, and using that quote's framework, they're horrible.
Horrible. As in, terminal case, horrible.
That's the implication. Opponents are hitting a staggering .326, .419, .588 against the bullpen.
Whoa. 0.3, 26 batting average, 0.4, 19 on base.
And .588 slugging against the relievers.
So his numbers are showing the bullpen is significantly, way worse than the starters, who he already called miserable.
Yeah, that's the stark contrast he highlights within the pitching staff itself. Miserable starters, horrible relievers.
Yeah, it is something else. A horrible distinction indeed.
It is. And Pinto's only recommendation, and you can almost hear the dry humor, is for the A's to just, go back to the Billy Martin days.
Right.
Starters just finish every game.
Right. A pretty clear, pointed commentary on the state of that bullpen based on his analysis.
Definitely. Okay, let's try to wrap up this deep dive into David Pinto's post over on Baseball Musings.
It's all good.
Because his analysis really does give us a very clear, very specific picture of what's driving this Oakland Athletics collapse since early May, at least according to his numbers.
Yeah, the core finding, as Pinto lays it out, it's pretty stark, isn't it? This slump, this really dramatic downturn, it's primarily down to what he calls ghastly pitching.
Right, not a failure of the offense, which, as he showed, has been, closer to league average during this same tough stretch.
And those pitching numbers are just, eye-popping.
Yeah.
Opponents hitting over .300 overall against them.
That analogy Pinto used really sticks with you, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Facing a combo of James Wood, Jose Ramirez, and Alex Bregman every time up.
Yeah, it perfectly illustrates how historically tough it's been for their pitchers, according to his data, just getting anyone out.
And like you walked us through, Pinto uses that Annie Hall quote to highlight the specific and almost unbelievable split within the pitching staff itself.
The starters being miserable, which is bad enough.
Yeah.
But the relievers being horrible. Facing opponent hitting numbers that are just, almost unprecedentedly bad.
Yeah. So hopefully this deep dive into the specific stats and the analysis provided by David Pinto gives you, the listener, a much clearer picture of the unique pitching-driven challenges this team is facing, all laid out really effectively in his post.
Definitely. And again, it's huge thanks to David Pinto for that breakdown on Baseball Musings. Is really insightful stuff.
It is a fascinating look at a very unusual situation unfolding in the game right now.
For sure.
And maybe it leaves us with something to think about, coming directly from David Pinto's analysis. What does it really mean for a team when their pitching performs so badly, so historically poorly, that opposing hitters essentially turn into a lineup of super hitters? And how does that specific, really horrible distinction Pinto points out between the merely miserable starters and the truly dreadful relievers? How does that shape the immediate problems or, any potential paths forward for the team? Something to chew on.
Definitely something to think about.